Hello and welcome to True Faith Presents the Charlotte Show. It's your Arsenal warm-up here tonight. Hello, I am Charlotte. I'm joined by Mickey and Norman this evening. Hi guys, thank you so much for joining us. And we're going to strip it down back to basics today. We're just going to pass the conversation between us. We are going to win the YouTube game. We're playing Arsenal tonight. It's a league game. We played them recently. They beat us. And I reckon it's probably about time for the team sheet. Are you guys excited? Are you excited?
Buzzing.
Can't even get my words out. I'm so excited.
I thought so. I did think so. Let's have a little look, shall we? At our team sheet. We've got it. All right, guys. No, I'm not that good. Eventually, I will learn how to do that, but unfortunately, no. So we're going to have to use our words. We have Darlow, Kraft, Lascelles, who's captain, Clark, Lewis, Shelby, Matty Longstaff, Almiron, Joelinton, Carroll, and Wilson.
4-4-2, isn't it?
Yeah, it's 4-4-2. We were told. I might not swear today, but unfortunately, I already have. We were. There were rumors. We were going to have two up front today. There were people talking about. Well, I mean, Bruce himself, didn't he? Was talking about how it's finally time to do things his way. Norman, what's your immediate reaction on that lineup?
If it's 4-4-2, it's very frightening to know that we've got Miggy Almiron on the left of midfield and Joelinton on the right. That is absolutely atrocious and can cause us real issues. Miggy Almiron's an excellent player, but he's not a left midfielder. Joelinton is not a particularly good player at all, and he is most definitely not a right midfielder. So part of me's thinking, has he actually gone for some kind of 4-3-3 formation or a 4-3-2-1 formation? I think he probably has gone 4-4-2, but at the minute I'm kind of not accepting it. Maybe my head won't accept it. The fact that we've got Joelinton and Almiron as wide midfielders, I can't work that one out. That's asking for trouble. Whereas maybe 4-3-3 with a kind of sort of narrow midfield. And Joelinton, I mean, I'm told this is total rubbish because it's not happening. But Joelinton and Wilson either side of Carroll, possibly. But I mean, that's not the truth, is it? That's not what's happening. Like, so I was thinking, best case scenario for me, maybe Joelinton and Wilson either side of Carroll or supporting him, and then a kind of narrow midfield of Longstaff, Shelby, and Almiron, or Longstaff and Shelby sitting a little bit deep and Almiron more advanced. But that's way too technical. It's not going to happen. It would give no width at all. So it's 4-4-2, isn't it, with Joelinton and Almiron on the left and right?
Yeah, I think Bruce has repeatedly said that he wants to play it how he wants to play it. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, in the 19 months he's been in charge, he's been unable to do that so far. But now he's finally doing it how he wants to do it. I mentioned it on Friday's show that he said, I've said from the beginning how I want to do it, and I'm finally going to. And Chris Woff said no, he hasn't been very clear on that at all since the beginning. He sort of alluded to the fact that he'd like to play a little bit more attacking. But like you said, Norman, the options there with that team sheet, the more creative and tactical you are with it, say a 4-3-3 or something like that, the less likely it is to be that, because it's Steve Bruce setting up the team, and he's an old style manager, and 4-4-2 is a very old school way of attacking this. Mickey, what are your thoughts?
I don't even know what to say. I mean, no one, I take your point, but then I think if Newcastle have got any chance of winning any game of football at all, Callum Wilson has to be played in the right position. So as much as I don't want to see Joelinton on the left or the right of a four-man midfield, because it will be a total catastrophe. I don't want to see Wilson anywhere else but number 9. So and obviously Carroll can't play anywhere else other than up front, although you spent none of his time up front anyway. I don't know what to say. Like something had to be drastically different to what we've had recently, and it looks like this probably is going to be pretty different. So I'm really clutching to try and be optimistic, but like, what can you say? You know, the comments have nailed it. Like throwing a hand grenade in, spot on. 4-4-2, spot on. Like they're both playing as false tens. Could be.
Yeah, we did get a question there. Who's in the false 10 position? Well, maybe that was Davey. Hi, Davey. He said, "Who's the false 10? Who's going to be the false 10 tonight?"
We'll
and then Martin
two false tens.
Yeah, they're both false 10.
Obviously, there's two. If you play false tens, you have to have two.
Well, nobody plays false 10s, Mickey, because it's not a thing that's ever been a thing.
Doesn't exist.
And I refuse to gift that to Steve Bruce. Go on, Norman.
Well, I think, you know what, like the false nine wasn't a thing, so maybe Bruce is on to like some sort of Spanish football and evolution circa 2008. That's a possibility, isn't it? Obviously, based on his managerial career, his innovative managerial career, but also Slothy Vlogs has just put in Carroll the third centre back, and I shouted centre half. That's it. Like Carroll at centre back, third centre back, and then Joe Linton hold midfield. Sweet. That's where we're at. That's what I want to see. In fact, I think I'd rather see that Carroll at centre half and Joe Linton hold midfield, just purely for the comic value of it. It would be brilliant. And two false ends.
Maybe Lewis is going to partner with Joe Linton tonight, because I don't think he's had a go with him yet. So it could be that. It could be sitting somewhere on the wing. Arthur Jones. Oh, what is Mandizvidza? That's a cool name if it's your name. Wait and see Miggy Almiron at wing back. Yeah, like, I mean, we say the lineup and we know where the players normally play, but that doesn't mean they're playing where they're normally playing. We don't know what the hell he's going to do with them tonight. You don't see the word cretin enough, do you? Some A2's written 18 months to play his attacking way against a team that struggled against a low block all season long. He's an absolute cretin. And there's a comma there which suggests there's more, but he just couldn't physically type any more about him. So are we more excited? Mickey, you were struggling to be positive. What about you, Norman? How do you feel about tonight?
How I felt for a long time about watching Newcastle. It's almost like you're putting yourself through some form of purgatory. That you know, like no matter how bad we've been historically, and given I've seen some fairly shocking sides since my first game in the mid-80s. Like I've always up until I would say this season, sometimes under Pardew and a couple of games under McClaren, like just not even not look forward to it, just being completely like, all right, it's happening. I'm going to watch it. I'm going through. It's almost like muscle memory that I'm watching it from. So it's very, very difficult to get excited about it. Once the match kicks off, there'll be certain elements of the game that I enjoy. You know, if I try and look at it from a kind of objective perspective. So I'll enjoy watching Saka, the Arsenal player, because he's excellent. But in terms of being a Newcastle United fan, am I excited? Am I excited to see Newcastle United play football tonight? I cannot lie and say I am. I'm not. I feel pretty much I'm going to watch it. That's it. That my emotion. Right? You know what's more enjoyable? Seeing this, engaging with fellow fans and you too. This is the most enjoyable part of the match, I reckon.
This is definitely my favorite part. I love doing these, and I love people's comments and stuff coming in and chatting about it. Just so that we are all on the same page, our subs tonight are Dubravka, Manquillo, Yedlin, Richie, Hayden, Hendrick, Sean Longstaff, Murphy, and Anderson. So that's Elliot Anderson, the youngster, who's
Gale not even on the bench.
No Gale.
Gale is not on the bench. That comment just came up here. No, Gale hasn't made the bench.
He must be injured, surely.
I haven't heard if anybody has knows if he is injured or not, but I don't think I haven't heard that he is, which is unusual because there's no forward on the bench, but they're just all on the pitch. I'm excited because it's Davey says, Bruce raves about Gale, who now can't even make the bench. I wrote an article for this next fanzine that's coming out on how Steve Bruce might pick players and set up the team. And I do think that I put some different hypotheses forward, and one of them was that he just likes to give people a go who haven't had a go for a bit. So maybe Gail will have a go next time. Just yeah. This is interesting. Seems like it's an all or nothing move from Bruce. So let's track, I guess, back a little bit and then to today, to Friday and today, to the comments that Steve Bruce made. He's made some sort of mad comments calling the team shite against Sheffield United and saying they were frigging hopeless. Frigging, by the way. Okay, Steve. And then today, and he said the gloves are off, we're going to do it my way. Okay, Mark's asked a good question. Re that, which I'll come back to. But do we think this is an all or nothing move? Norman, what do you think? Is it make or break, or do you think do you think it's Davey goes on to say it reeks of desperation? What do you think?
The way Bruce is talking at the minute is desperation. This kind of patter only comes out of managers. I mean, it doesn't come out of that many managers that I know of, but when it does come out of managers, it is because they're kind of they've almost accepted that they can do nothing anymore. So it's almost like you get the point where you don't care what you say, because you know that, like, if you try and change things professionally and you keep on going the way, or nothing's going to change. So you might as well, you just might as well, you know what I mean? And I've been frankly, not baffled by his comments, but it is just a case of him really rolling the dice for the last time. I think on many levels, like, if we lost the next 3 or 4 games and he got sacked, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for him personally. I'm not saying that that's what he wants, but what I mean is that
financially it would certainly be fine.
It would be good financially, but what I mean is it's like almost like this, to me, looks like it's only going to go one way. It's going to get more and more toxic, and the reality is, the moment you start seeing these things, seeing these things publicly, your players see this, and like as we've said before, imagine being a player and hearing that, like, you just think, well, I don't want to play for this bloke. Like, it wouldn't work for me. Like, the psychology of it all, like, if somebody gives like a public dressing down or criticizes people publicly, it's like, I'm going to show him. I didn't think that's how it works in top level football. I really didn't.
No, I agree. Somebody, Kev, has written, don't try and make sense or analyze this. It's just the latest round of Brucey Bingo. Now, I disagree with you, Kev. I think Brucey Bingo is a set, codified, like, group of excuses that he uses, you know, and little idioms and phrases that he uses. The comments about, like, everyone being shite felt like he'd lost the plot a little bit to me. Mickey, if your boss, who I realise is Alex, went to the press and said that you were shite and you needed to do better, how motivated would you be to do better?
It would be so controversial because he's my best mate as well. That's absolutely good. Needless to go to the press as well in the circumstances. It's just bizarre, isn't it? And it's signs of a man that's losing the ability to do the job. Like, it's absolutely insane to hang the players out to dry like that. And, you know, one of the things that everyone's spoken about the entire time he's been Newcastle manager is man management being the major factor in how he's going to do a decent job. That's just out the window, isn't it? Like, what happens the next time one of his players has a problem and they think, like, that they need to go to the manager about? They're going to think, like, fucking hell, like 4 weeks ago he said we're all shite. Like, I don't want to speak to that guy anymore. You know, it's not going to be. I can't see it being from these players. Let's prove Steve wrong at all. I think they're just going to be like, Sodom, what does he know? You know, we're doing terribly in the league. We've played a formation that's not worked. Like, he's talking constantly in the press about not knowing what tactics are. He mentioned it again this week. I want to talk about that in a second, but talking about tactics
he did suggest he knows what a tactic is. It's just that he doesn't feel the need for it.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. And, like, that's the man that's called them shite at their jobs, and that, you know, the players aren't absolved of of any responsibility for what's happened recently by any stretch of the imagination, but it's what he said is like unacceptable, and I think amongst the squad there will be some real serious anger about it.
Yeah, it would be really difficult, I think, for me personally, I would struggle a lot with that. I really like the idea that Alex, like, going to the press, your job has nothing to do with the public, but like going to the press, like, print this story, I've got to tell people. We've got a lot of questions about Manquillo. What is going on with Manquillo? Paul G says, didn't he have COVID? A lot of people saying surprised he's not starting. What is going on, Norman? Do you think it's just that I don't know if he had COVID, so I can't speak to that, but do you think that he just doesn't fit into this group of players? Do you think that Bruce thinks he's shit and doesn't want him? Like, do you have any thoughts on it? Or do you miss him? Do you want him in there in the first place?
I prefer him to Kraft, that's for sure. So the COVID story, if there's any truth in that, then fair enough. He might be struggling for fitness, but at the same time, he was in and out of the side anyways, regardless of the fact that he was actually one of the better performers last season under Bruce. He didn't seem... He was one of the very few who didn't regress under Bruce. And he's looked solid when he's played this season. As is Yedlin, really. Bringing Kraft in is... I always struggle because he's not a particularly good player. All I can think of is that Kraft is obviously a Bruce signing. And look, this is conspiracy theory territory, but I genuinely don't think that Bruce likes the fact that like quite a lot of Rafa signings are still around. It's almost like he wants to put his players in the side, like the lads that he's brought in. Maybe I might be targeting at that rubbish, but all I can think of is how Almiron's been like used very poorly since Bruce came in. Almiron was a big Rafa signing. Gale, who Bruce apparently raves about, but he's not necessarily in the side very much. Now, obviously, we're going to see Fernandez was kind of ostracised initially until by default he got on the side and then he became undroppable. I'm probably talking totally rubbish here, but I just think that like, why would you put Kraft in ahead of Manquillo? I genuinely don't know. I can only assume, and this is like, me being optimistic about Bruce, is that there's a slight injury or fitness concern with Manquillo, because if Manquillo is available, you should put him in ahead of Kraft every single time, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, he is on the bench, so he's obviously fit enough to come on for a bit if he needs to. I don't know about the COVID thing. I was thinking about while you were talking there, and I was thinking like the club was forced to kind of speak out about who had COVID and who, and it was ASM, it was Lascelles who were particularly affected by it. I didn't say anything about Manquillo, so
I think there was at least one that said definitely had it, that whose name hadn't been released, because it was definitely Lascelles and Saint-Maximin.
Oh,
obviously, who else was it? I remember thinking at the time when the last of the names came out, there's still one of them that hasn't been mentioned. So maybe it's Manquillo. It might make a bit of sense, but it's probably us giving too much credit. Like I think it's a selection call and it's wrong. Maybe
Manquillo objected to being labelled as frigging shite in public.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. Somebody, I'm just having a little peruse of the little comments here. And sorry to belittle your comments by calling them little. They're huge and great. So thanks for writing them. No share on the bench even at all either, which, I was thinking he called them shit. Do you remember a few matches ago, was it after Leeds? And he just said, "Oh shit." Maybe it's okay if he does it, but he doesn't like it if the manager does it.
He was also Shea was also getting incredibly wound up in my last match, wasn't he? I don't know if you noticed his body language on the pitch, and he was committing fouls, and I thought I genuinely thought he was going to get sent off against Sheffield United at one point. He was proper wound up, and I think Shea for me was one of those players who visibly showed how little confidence he had in what was happening around him, because he looked lost, and he looked as almost if he was saying, to me, it looked like he was saying, like, what's going on here? But like Ryan Fraser, like you could argue that Ryan Fraser did the same thing. He just didn't necessarily know what he was supposed to be doing, what the position was that he was supposed to be playing, and he put in like a couple of ridiculous challenges because the thing is, if there's no structure to the team and there's no kind of tactical discipline, then players will commit silly fouls or they'll do silly things because there's nothing coming to them. They get frustrated, and Fraser, I think, got frustrated, and Shea, to me, looked like he was getting frustrated as well. And Isaac Hayden's always a good one to watch. You can tell when the team hasn't really had much input or isn't necessarily clear what it's supposed to be doing, because Isaac Hayden starts to put in nasty tackles as well. He's obviously done that a couple of times.
I also think, back to Shea, but that's a really good point about Hayden and his tackles. I hadn't thought about that, but you're very right, of course. When aren't you? The thing about Shea is that you can tell when he's getting pissed off and when he wants to when he's getting pissed off and frustrated with the game. But he's also the kind of person, I think, and player to make that known. And I don't think, on the pitch clearly after Leeds and then maybe in the dressing room as well. So I don't think that would endear him to Bruce either, who personally I think seems to be a little bit thin-skinned.
I heard a rumour as well about Bruce that apparently he doesn't like the Swiss.
Oh yeah, of course.
One of these things. Can't stand the Swiss.
When you compare what Shea did and what Bruce said, like Shea said it in the heat of the moment to NUFC TV on the pitch in the immediate aftermath of like a terrible performance which he was part of. Bruce had like 4 days to consider his words, and then already had an interview about the same subjects in the immediate time before he spoke to the written press, and then comes out, we were absolute shite, weren't we? Like, and as funny as that expression is, like, because it is a funny thing for a Premier League manager to say to the press, like, what planet is he on?
I love the idea that he's like sat at home, like, what shall I say? What shall I say about that? Like,
I've said many times that Newcastle should be employing someone to literally coach him before his press conferences, because they all go so badly. Like any other team,
optimistic. Newcastle,
any other team in the league that it was going this badly for would have brought someone in that's trained in the media to speak to the manager before he does the press conferences, because there's so many catastrophic comments that come out of his mouth that are just so avoidable. And how much would someone that's trained in them, like really seriously well trained as a like a media coach cost Newcastle United to employ for a year? Like 100,000 quid. And it's a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of things, like come on.
Yeah, but this is the club that furloughed like everyone immediately upon hearing that they could furlough people. Like, I think people are still on furlough at the club, like, and elite sports been back for months.
That's a disgrace.
Every time, sorry, Charlotte.
No, please go.
Every time we have a discussion about Newcastle doing things like professionally, like most other Premier League clubs, there's only one image that just pops straight into my head, and it's the players like sat in wheelie bins outside the training ground. Like every time we talk about actually doing something that like every other team in the Premier League would do, I just picture Mo Sissoko in a wheelie bin, like in cold water, because basically the club won't buy an ice bath. That is that. So there you go. Getting a media coach in, you've just got Bruce sat at home with there's little flip notepads from WH Smith, right? Like loads of different things. And they watch last year. What did I say? Not very good. Didn't press. Fucking shite. Friggin' shite. That's how we'll use that. That'll do.
Maybe someone got him a thesaurus for Christmas, and he's like he's sick of saying not good enough, so he's like looking up like antonyms for good, and then found shite and was like, oh, that's a good one. I'll say that.
We should send them a link to the Urban Dictionary, see what we can get him to come out with.
Say that again.
We should send him a link to the Urban Dictionary, see what we can get him to come out with.
That's such a good idea.
Many good words on there, Steve.
So there's a question I've had on the screen for ages, lots of comments coming in. I'm seeing them, I'm going to put them on, but I'm just putting this question on the screen. What is the problem with the lineup? Who's going to cross the ball? No Richie, no Murphy. Nice putting Carroll up top, but who's going to cross it in the box? Joe Linton, obviously.
There's two parts to that, isn't there? Like, it seems so obvious if you've got a 6'4" striker who's in theory good in the air. You'd want your best crosses of the ball, and we have neither of them on the pitch. Madness. But then the caveat of that is, whenever we have the ball in a crossing position, Carroll's in our in the centre circle trying to keep up with play. So you can kind of sort of think like, what's the point?
Who's partnering the remind me who's partnering Lascelles at the back?
Clark.
So I haven't even got Fede Fernandez to whip a crossing because Fernandez can get a really good crossing.
No, it's Kraft, Lascelles, Clark, and Lewis, and then Shelvey, Matty Longstaff.
Stop there.
Almiron and Jones.
Take Shelvey out as well.
Anyone of smartphone wars, is anyone afraid of seeing Lascelles in a back four? He's really poor in those as he's slow and immobile. I'm a bit I'm not keen on seeing him. Was it against Arsenal last week when he did half a game? I thought he really struggled. Norman, what do you think? Do you think he's slow and immobile?
You know what? I think Lascelles has been excellent for Newcastle. You know, when Benitez took over and he made him captain pretty early on, he was fantastic, wasn't he? In especially the last 6 games that we went unbeaten, and even though we got relegated, and he really grew into the captain's job, and he was excellent in the Championship. Great first season back in the Premier League. You know, at the end of that first season in the Premier League, he was being touted for moves to Chelsea for like 35-40 million. Talk of him getting called in the England squad, etc. And the reality is, the last couple of years, he has gone backwards massively. I mean, really, it looks like the confidence is drained from him. He doesn't look like he's the kind of inspiring, big-voiced leader anymore. He looks almost like he's kind of shrank, which is incredible. If in all honesty, Fernandez to me has become the main man in terms of our centre halves. He looks like the actual leader now. Possibly Clark as well. He's been decent since he came back. So Lascelles, to me, it looks like there's a real lack of self-belief there at the minute. So I can definitely get the point. And at the minute, if I had to pick 2 centre halves, as much as I love Lascelles, as I say about what he's done, the fact he's a club captain, and he is a leader in many respects. But in terms of how they've played over the last sort of 12 months, it will be Fernandez and Clark for me, which is sad to see, but that's just how I see it.
Well, Fernandez isn't playing, so that's not an option, I'm afraid. Norman? Yeah, the confidence drop point is true, I think, of quite a lot of our players, particularly this season. You can see it in Almiron. He just doesn't really know where he's supposed to be, I think. He's not, I don't feel like he's been developed very well, and he used to be. He's definitely a confidence player in that. It took him ages to get his goal, and he was very, I think, keen for that, and it became a bit of a thing, and yeah, I guess I don't really know what I'm saying. Like, I just think that you watch him play now, and he just looks really despondent quite a lot of the time. Kev Reed says Lascelles has gone backwards, hasn't kicked on from his promising Rafa days. Well, I think that's true of quite a lot of our players. I don't want to come out and be really negative about them. I know that they're probably working, hard within the parameters that they're set, but I think a lot of our players have gone backwards. So somebody came and said that Lewis can cross. And so can Shelvey. Where is Shelvey going to cross from? Our own half. Lewis is a decent crosser, but Richie is better. Mickey, what do you think?
Totally agree on Shelvey. It's the worst thing about him playing, especially when we play with a back four, is that Shelvey just becomes a centre half basically when we've got the ball, which is a disaster because he ends up so deep. He's nowhere near a position where he can really affect the play going forward, other than picking out the 1 in a million pass in behind, which he does have in the locker, but we haven't seen it for years. So yeah, that's spot on. Shelvey can cross the ball, but he'll never be anywhere near the position where he should be to do it. And I remain to be convinced about Lewis. I was very excited when we signed him, but I haven't seen much of an end product from him so far this season. So, he proved me wrong, because I think he's a good player, but you can't categorize him for me anyway as a good crosser at the minute because he hasn't proved it ever.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think it's an in theory rather than in practice. And I also think that that's true now of Shelvey because he had it in the locker. But as you say, Mickey, we haven't seen it for years. Can you even say that he still has it in the locker? Like he once did. I mean, I know that we struggle midfield anyway, but I have lost my patience with him. Norman, you shook your head there.
I agree with you on Shelvey. To me, it looks like someone who seriously lacks motivation and desire. That's not, there's no doubt that there's a talented footballer there, but at the same time, Shelvey, right, as a player, he's never come across as being the most naturally fit individual. So I get the impression that someone like Shelvey needs a kind of strong hand on the training ground from the coaches to keep him fit, just keep him fit all the time. And obviously, we've heard under Bruce that players tend to enjoy quite a few days off. I don't imagine that there's a great intensity to the training sessions. And I think Shelvey's one of those. He seems to me, anyways, you do get footballers like it, that if he's not being kind of kept on his toes in terms of fitness, it slides quite quickly. And he looks to me really like one of the least fit players in the team. When he plays, I think, was it Leicester who maybe when he was trying to track back? Was it Leicester? I can't remember. And it was just absolutely zero pace. I genuinely thought if I was on the pitch running next to him, I could probably do him for pace. And I'm 43 years old, dodgy knees. I genuinely thought, put me on the pitch, it probably wouldn't work out like that. But it seemed like it. I had 4 pints by this point, and also obviously I was quicker than anyone. But the other thing I was going to say was Bruce saying he's throwing the gloves off. Like, what is like somebody we keep mentioning about, putting crosses in, right? Carroll in the box. Like, Jacob Murphy, right? For all of his limitations as a player, this is a kid he does have the confidence and desire to skin players, right? He'll do that. He'll try and take the fullback on. He is quick, and Jacob Murphy can put a really good cross in. Like, if you're going to take the gloves off, then surely you think, well, you know what? Actually, I'm going to start with somebody who is an out-and-out winger, and that's really sad for me. Is that actually Murphy could probably be a useful weapon if we're starting with Carroll and Wilson up top tonight.
Yeah. I mean, oh God, it feels so depressing. Let's the gloves are off. The gloves are off. So actually, I'll pick us up with Mark's question from ages ago. Mark's probably long gone because he didn't ask a question. Maybe he doesn't have a Steve Bruce approach to life and hasn't thrown his toys out the pram and is still watching. Mark wanted to talk about the gloves off comment. I don't even know what this means. The gloves are off. It's pathetic. If you had to put your gloves on, which ex-manager or player would you get into the ring with? Same weight, of course. God, you'd have to think about their weight when playing, not now, because some ex-players.
Rafa would be heavy.
Yeah,
Rafa would be like dense. He looked like dense, didn't he? Like there's. Like sort of a square foot of Rafa's body who's like 10 times heavier than anyone else. Is like just it's like there's a solidity there that's really heavy. You know what I mean? Like he's short. He looks the same size. He looks the same width as your man walking down the street, but he's actually like 25 times heavier because of the density of his bones and he's fat. You know what I mean? So
you couldn't push him over.
Yeah.
You couldn't. You'd be pummeling him.
Oh yeah, like in a cartoon.
Yeah.
No damage at all.
So I don't know who's going to be the same weight as me. So I don't know who would you want to beat up, Mickey?
Well, that depends on the question, and it's like who do you fancy yourself against, and who would you most likely punch in the face? Like I'd pick Souness because I hate him so much that I'd love to just get one shot, but that's with the total consciousness that he'd absolutely have us all over.
He wouldn't. The problems that he's had with his heart, the likelihood is you probably basically, if you hit him in the chest, you'd basically kill him, and that would be absolutely horrific.
Oh, I don't want to kill him.
You wouldn't even have to hit him. You could probably just give him a shock.
Or a fright, yeah. Collapses, dead. Oh, terrible fight.
If that was the goal, which of course it shouldn't be. Lots of people agreeing with you on Jacob Murphy there, Norman. Murphy is on the bench tonight, right? Yes. He is one of the only players that I have watched play with us recently that I think has shown any kind of glimmer of excitement or hunger or hope. Actually, somebody, I think it was Chris Shipman, who's watching. Hi, Chris. Chris is part of the podcast. who said, "Are you excited to see Elliot Anderson?" He's another one who did show something, a bit of something on the pitch. We talked about it on the free podcast after Arsenal, Norman, and you said he's the sort of living the Geordie dream. Would you expect to see him tonight? I don't know how he would fit in, I guess, unless Carroll simply cannot do 90 minutes or something. I don't know.
I guess there's two ways of looking at it. I think if we're like 3-0 down after 70 minutes, you might get like a 20-minute run out. So he won't be able to affect the game at all. And it won't really matter if he comes on and doesn't do anything, does something spectacular, like in the time he's on the pitch, or makes a mistake. It won't matter. Or alternatively, he, basically Bruce just decides, well, the gloves are off. The gloves are off. It's 0-0 after 60 minutes. I'm going to throw the young'un on, see if he can conjure something up. So I think there's a possibility he'll get on. And I mean, ultimately, why not? Genuinely, if Bruce is as good as his word and says the gloves are off, and that insinuates that he's thinking I've got nothing to lose, then why not put Anderson on? I don't think it'll do him any harm. At the moment, he's 18 years old, coming off the bench isn't going to have any kind of significant impact. We could talk about like the Longstaff brothers and how they broke through, look good, and have been, let's say, slightly mismanaged since. Anderson's not at that stage yet, so it wouldn't do him any harm to give him like sort of 20, 30 minutes. And would I like to see it? Of course I would. He's an 18-year-old Geordie kid. I'd love to see him on the pitch.
Yeah, same. So I just had a quick look at Twitter. This is Twitter on my phone. I don't know why I do that. I did that on Friday as well, being like, look, proof. Jamie Carragher, I haven't watched it, obviously, but Jamie Carragher on the Sky Sports thing tonight has said he's gone in depth, apparently. If people are watching, pop in the comments more of what he's said. He's said they're about Newcastle. Their display at Sheffield United, they are in a massive relegation battle, I have no doubt. So that's interesting, isn't it? You don't get that.
Jamie just doesn't understand relegation battles, does he? Like you can only be in a relegation battle if you're in a relegation zone.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh, and that gets paid to be on Sky.
That's only a maybe as well. That's only a maybe. You only maybe in the relegation zone if you're in the relegation zone. Like maybe.
Yeah, on a tree in the forest. Does the bear hear it? The relegation battle, I think we mentioned it on the last podcast. Despite this, this 7-8 point gap, you have to look at the form of the teams below us right now. Sheffield United, they're gone. They beat us, right? Fulham drew 5 off the spin. They've played well. They're looking tight at the back. They're struggling to score goals, admittedly, but at the same time, there's something there. There's something to work with. They seem to be improving. They were unlucky against Chelsea. They went down to 10 men on the stroke of half time. They were unlucky. West Brom have just got their first win. Now, obviously, as much as I detest Allardyce, he has got a track record of getting rubbish teams out of the bottom 3. I'm saying rubbish. I mean, West Brom are probably, they're really terrible. Palace weren't actually that bad, but we are in a relegation. We lose tonight. You look at the teams below. Fulham have got a game in hand, I think. Burnley perhaps have got a game in hand. Brighton, despite the fact that they've only got 3 wins this season, they've never really played poorly, and the beat Leeds will be on Saturday. So the cushion, the 7-8 point cushion, it quickly disappears, and we definitely are in a relegation battle now. Tonight, I'm expecting us to lose. We come out tonight with a win or even a point, I think we'll still be in a relegation battle because, unfortunately, we've mentioned this before, the pattern under Bruce is we seem to get a result when the chips are down, and this is like the most down they've ever been. So even if we get a win tonight, I would still consider us to be in a relegation battle, regardless of the 7 to 9 points or whatever it is, would be away from the bottom 3.
Yeah, I agree. And I wrote today's special. If you don't get the special, you should think about it. I think you can sign up on our website. We post it through our Twitter as well. It's our match day newsletter. Goes out the morning of every match day. I wrote our editorial on that today, and I wrote that on the radio yesterday. I think it was 5 Live, but it might have been a Talk Sport. A Leeds fan was on the radio saying we're in a relegation battle, we're in real danger of being relegated, we need to be careful, and they're like 3 or 4 places above us. I think they were 12th or something on 23 points. Like that kind of, if we were on 23 points, I'd feel so much more comfortable. We just definitely are in a really dangerous area here, I think. Smartphone Wars says, okay, let's say the worst happens and we win. We're back from square one. Media will praise him for turning it around, even if we lose the next 3. That's probably true. The reason I brought up the Carragher comment there was because, you know, we've sat and listened to the media tell us that we're spoiled, that we want too much, that why are we complaining? We're not in the relegation zone, like yada yada yada. And so it's kind of nice to get some kind of somebody on the telly saying, no, you know, the football's pretty terrible, apart from Steve Bruce himself. Mickey, do you feel that we are, or do you think we're being hyperbolic?
No, because we're not being hyperbolic. Newcastle fans have got a history of being proven right in the long run with things like this, and it'll happen again. The narrative in the media is what it is. We've come to expect it now, haven't we? Just my advice always is just don't listen to them. Don't listen to these fools.
Yeah. Gil72, sorry, I don't know your name. Lawrenson just saying that he feels sympathy for Bruce and that his remit from 2019 has been to keep us up. Notice the narrative is changing about this keep us up rhetoric, Orwellian. Yeah, we're being told how to feel about that. The remit stuff, how depressing that's it. Alex Hurst is watching as well. Hi, Alex. Even if tonight goes well, assume Bruce thinks well is a 2-0 defeat. Does it not highlight how ridiculous it was that he refused to change up formation versus Arsenal in a cup game that was 0-0 on 105 minutes? Norman, do you think that tonight will highlight that? I think that was already fairly highlighted.
I think, yeah, it was already fairly highlighted. And like tonight, I think what the most depressing aspect of Alex's question there is the first part. Well, is a 2-0 defeat, isn't it? This is the feeling that we've had for a long time under Bruce, is that when we play the so-called, air quotes, bigger teams, I'm on camera, indeed, so-called, the bigger teams, and we lose 1-0 or 2-0 or 3-1, like that's seen as alright, that's seen as acceptable. Like Arsenal win the cup 0-0 after 120 minutes, after 117 minutes. That was a good performance, despite the fact we lost 2-0. It was good because it was Arsenal away. And yeah. I think that's what's more depressing. So tonight, like genuinely, like, so let's think of everything that's gone on and where we are right now. How bad it is, all the comments in the media, Bruce coming out and, you know, losing the plot in the media. If we play tonight and only lose 1-0, right, that's on paper a tight game. And I genuinely think Bruce will look at that as an improved performance, regardless of how bad the performance might be. The fact it's only a 1-0 defeat away at Arsenal will be taken as actually, well, it's Arsenal away, 1-0. That's not bad, is it? And that's what's really sad about it. But I mean, the second part of it, was it ridiculous? Well, of course it was. But hey, there you go. Welcome to Newcastle.
Yeah, Steve Bruce isn't exactly known, and we've talked about it a lot on the podcast about his in-game management or lack thereof. I would fall off my chair if he changed formation mid-game to try and impact it. I can't see that happening.
I'd fall off Fabian Schär if
he's not even on the bench. So is that why he's at your house?
He's in the gaff. He's looking after the dog. Are you, Fab? So.
Norman, you've done
down so that you have somewhere comfortable to sit.
Sat there with a Toblerone, Swiss.
Alex says, just been onto the Northumberland Gazette about an unnamed employee and friend who was shite. Oh dear. Smartphone Wars asking us for predictions. Well, we'll do that at the end of the show, so give us a little bit of time.
Just on Alex's previous question, the other interesting thing about the formation thing is, you know, being realistic, Bruce has to think that he can win this game playing the formation that he's playing tonight. Why not play it in the cup? Why not play it in the cup? If you think that formation can win you the game, why not play it in the cup? There is no answer.
No, the answer is that he doesn't want to win the cup game because then we have to play more games. And his remit is not now to have a good go at the cups. It's to keep us up. And we don't have the squad depth to do a cup run. There you go.
I don't think he believes we can win tonight.
Well, that's kind of the point that I was making.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you had a point there, Norman, about the improvement. That is exactly what he did at the Man City performance, which was not an improvement, which was labelled an improvement. It wasn't an improvement because Man City only beat us 2-0 because they didn't try and score anymore, but they could have. Like, it wasn't an improved performance from Newcastle. It was another shit performance, but it was labelled an improvement because the average scoreline you would expect from a Newcastle side as bad as this against Man City is probably worse than that. But that doesn't make it an improvement if it's not actually better. So you're exactly right. That is definitely going to happen. If this is the way the result goes tonight, Bruce will say that, and it'll be wrong again in exactly the same way as it was about the Man City performance.
But the people that say that those things don't watch it. They're not watching. They just look at the score.
Well, Bruce watched. He's the manager.
He barely does. He barely does. Like, I won't believe that he can watch it and think that it's. I don't think so. I just won't believe it.
And he's doing sitting on the bench like this.
Yes. Yeah.
Someone else's eyes.
Steve, I'm not.
No, he's playing Angry Birds.
Eyes. Just watches it. Just pop someone else's eyes in and watches it. So the body's there, but it's John Carver's eyes. Maybe.
Oh no!
Where do you go from there?
John Carver sat in my room and he said, "Hey, watch him with Steve Bruce's eyes." Man, they just swap eyeballs.
Sat on chair.
Sat on a chair, on a Fabian chair. Chairs like that in a chair shape. And Carver's watching it. Steve Bruce's eyes.
Okay, we've got maybe just under 10 minutes before we'll let people go and get ready for the match. I pulled up Chris Woff's tweets because it's my favorite thing to do. Bruce said on Sky Sports before that 4 at the back was, quote, partly forced due to injuries and COVID issues, and again says it isn't necessarily his preference. What is his preference then? He plays 5 at the back all the time and whinges that that's not his preference.
Someone just needs to ask him these questions, man. Like, someone take your chance one time. Like, it isn't necessarily my preference, but what is, Steve? What is your preference? Because you've effectively said during the week that it was the players that got you to play 5, but you want to play 4, and now you're playing 4, but you're saying that you don't necessarily want to play 4. Like, which one is it? Give me an answer.
Do you think he just wants to play 6 at the back?
No, I know what it is.
What?
I know what it is. He wants it to be Birmingham City 2002. That's his preferred team and formation. But no one's told him yet that it's never going to happen again because it's actually 2021 and most of those players are retired. So until we get that, until he is allowed to put out Birmingham's team 2002, he's always going to say it's not my preferred formation. So we'll have to get Steve to accept that it's actually not 2002 anymore.
Well, how are we going to do that?
We can't, can we? That's what I'm saying. It's the impossible dream.
Oh, so it's just a Sisyphean task.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I wanted to touch on that's the new lights on, but nobody's home. That's just the body's there, but John Carver's eyes. I'm so sorry. I'm a terrible host when Norman makes me laugh because I just can't control it. I wanted to touch on if we think that Steve Bruce's body has not got much longer left, say, and Mark Hughes has been out and about today saying he's ready for a return. How do you feel about that, Mickey?
Can Mark Hughes wear the eyes or not? Are these transferable again? Or
no, he has to wear Bruce's eyes.
Oh God!
Choose one previous manager's eyes. To answer the question seriously, it's the most dismal. I think the most dismal I've ever felt when I realised that I would be really pleased if we got Mark Hughes because it would be such an improvement on what we have. That is horrendous. We as a group have rinsed Mark Hughes for years for being a terrible, terrible football manager. And now we would be a significant improvement on our current manager. It's just a catastrophe, isn't it?
Yeah, that's how I felt. I was talking to Alex about it, and he was like, "No, I'm up for it. Like, it would mean at least a quick spike in performance. It wouldn't be. It's not a long-term solution, but in terms of if we're looking to stay up, then I think he would keep us up. Norman, what did you make of it?
I like the continuity aspect because both him and Bruce could pass for like friends of me gran in the club. Like they both look like they could both pass for like 75-year-old grandmothers are six. But in terms of his managerial ability, I mean, look, he's an absolutely shocking manager. The job he did at Stoke was atrocious. Southampton, that went south very quickly. QPR, terrible. He's an awful manager, but at the same time, what he has done is at pretty much every club he's gone to, other than perhaps QPR, he's given them a little bit of a spike.
Yeah.
So if it was a choice between Bruce and Mark Hughes, I would go for Mark Hughes just because under Hughes, we might get like a few months of it being all right before it went bad. Whereas with Bruce, I just think it's going to continue to be bad. So it's a hideous choice. I'd actually rather have Tony Pulis than both Hughes and Bruce, which is, I mean, it's just an absolute tragedy, isn't it? It's like saying, do you want to go into prison in Venezuela, Bolivia, or North Korea? I got to Bolivia. Oh, yeah.
Why?
It's not very good, but it's still, it's a little bit better than North Korea. Venezuela. Yeah.
It's going to be better than North Korea, isn't it?
yeah, a little bit.
So Bruce is North Korean.
Bruce has to be North Korea in that.
Yeah. He's in North Korean prison.
Yeah. A North Korean prison with John Carver's eyes. That's nice. That is awful. Davey says Bruce or Mike Bassett.
Ricky Tomlinson.
At least he'd be fun. Yeah, it is. It's Alex says, I see your Mark Hughes and raise you an Owen Coyle who would probably pay Ashley to do the job.
We've talked about Owen Coyle being a likely candidate for the Newcastle job for getting on 10 years now. Seriously, like, we're the only Premier League team that would ever employ him again. But it wouldn't shock me at all if he was the next manager in Newcastle.
Well, you've been talking about it for so long because he needs to reach that sort of physical status that means he could go out with Norman's grandma. What were you saying? Go out with her?
I don't think he said that.
No, just be a friend.
Don't subject her.
Oh, okay.
Just get a rinse and get like a rinse and perm doing at the bar at the hairdressers, then get doing the Heaven Club for a G&T. But I meant I was actually thinking, why not just Phil Brown? I might as well just go. I'll sit with Owen Coyle and I raise you a Phil Brown.
Let's stop raising each other, these terrible people. I don't want them anywhere near our club.
Yeah, that would be iron. Phil Brown's like, I'd rather have Bruce than Phil Brown.
Well, Gil says Owen Coyle lives a Swiss, so that is one good thing, I guess. That's funny. All right, let's. Smartphone Wars. All jokes aside, there are at least 3 to 4 decent managers in the Championship who would come for the job.
We wouldn't employ them though. Ashley wouldn't employ them. That's the thing. Like, there's probably 100 better football managers in England than Steve Bruce that would take the Newcastle job, but we wouldn't look at any of them.
Did PSG have to settle for Poch because they couldn't afford Steve Bruce's Yeah, it must be. That's the only explanation. Oh God, people are trying to raise now. Somebody's written, I see your Owen Coyote.
Great name.
And raise your Phil Parkinson. No, stop raising managers who shouldn't be near our club. Like, let's just stop it. Okay, it's 7 minutes to the game. Let's do predictions, and then we'll let everybody jump off, get ready, and watch what I'm sure will be another brilliant game of Bruce Ball. Norman, what do you think the scoreline is going to be this evening with 4-4-2?
Controversial, but Arsenal, I watched the full game against Crystal Palace and they really struggled to create chances. I've got a feeling this is going to be 0-0.
Do you? Okay. I wouldn't disagree necessarily after the cup performance, because I mean that was 0-0 right into the 115 minutes. So if we can hang on for that 90, Mickey, what do you think it'll be?
I think Bruce is going to pull out his get out of jail free card again that he does every time he needs a result most. I think we're going to win
Do you? What? But
1-0.
what's
I
the
think it'll be an absolute horror show, but I think we're gonna sneak it.
score? Okay,
Which
so
is,
who's
which
our
is worse
scorer?
for us. Like the comments have been right. Like it's worse for us if we win.
Yeah. Who's our scorer then?
So it's Wilson.
Aubameyang own goal.
No one else can score.
Aubameyang, your own goal. Very good. I'm going to go with Norman. I'm going to say 0-0. I think we might snatch a point. But you're right. It is a bad thing if we win. We stay in this. We're still, as Norman mentioned earlier, in a pretty not great situation. We're still probably in a relegation battle if we get 3 points tonight. And if we get 3 points tonight, we are looking at hanging on to Steve Bruce's body and John Carver's eyes for a bit longer, which is obviously very undesirable. All right, if you've enjoyed this, now I'm trying to remember, if you've enjoyed this, click like and subscribe. And if not, don't. And we will be back on Friday or maybe Saturday because we've got Villa next Saturday night. So I might do a warm-up then, or I might do a Friday night show. Who knows? I like to keep people on their toes. Thank you to Mickey and Norman for joining me this evening. And thank you to everybody for watching. We will be back. Enjoy.